Imagine your kid's oxygen machine shutting off in a storm. And your HOA says the generator ruins the vibe. I moved into the brick duplex on Willow Trace, for the maple tree and the corner lot that got big. Honest light. My name is Deja Morgan, night shift nurse. Aunt to a stubborn 9-year-old named Miles. And daughter to Miss Ruth, who thinks sweet tea fixes sorrow. We came here after a landlord raised rent for the 3rd time. I wanted stability. A place where Miles could ride his scooter in figure eights without dodging glass. Cedar Point looked basic in a comforting way. White fences. Mailbox cluster by the pond. A pool with a posted sign that said, "No lifeguard on duty," in letters tall enough to shame you. I signed on May 20th. On May 21st, I met Karen. She had that cardigan you buy when you want to look reasonable in photos. Her badge said President. Cedar Point HOA. Her smile said, "I will write you up for blinking wrong. Welcome." She sang, like a ringtone. "We value harmony here." Cool. I said, shifting the box labeled Miles Science Stuff. Storm season's coming. So I'm setting a small backup generator for his oxygen concentrator. He's got asthma that acts like a drama kid. If the power dips, the machine dies. Her eyebrows lifted, like I'd confessed to building a nightclub. Generators are prohibited, she said. They're loud. And visually disruptive. I already spoke to the city. I said, the code allows a small, screened unit for medical necessities. I've got a permit. I tapped the folder in my tote. Because I like my ducks in a row with laminated name tags. Karen's smile pinched. Our covenants are more specific. I looked at Miles, who was drawing a dinosaur on the moving box with a blue marker like art was oxygen too. I get rules. I said, I work in ICU, but my boy needs air if the grid sneezes. Submit a request, she said. The board meets the 2nd Tuesday. That's after the first storm window. I said, weather's rolling in this weekend. We all have storms. Karen said with a pity voice. We all adapt. She handed me a welcome packet thick enough to stun a mule. Page 1 had a list of fines that read like a menu in a restaurant I could not afford. $500 for unauthorized exterior equipment. $200 for lawn variance. $50 for unaesthetic holiday decor. Which what does that even mean? Ugly Santa. I went inside and breathed. Miles plopped on the floor. The dinosaur now breathing fire on cardboard. Can we plant tomatoes, he asked. Grandma Ruth said, tomatoes love sun. Yeah, I said. We'll plant a whole salsa bar. Receipt 1 that afternoon, I slid a copy of the city permit under Karen's door. It said, in plain words, medical equipment emergency power approved. Her Ring camera blinked while I did it. I waved. Friday morning at 6. A letter appeared on my mat like a bad horoscope. Notice of intent to fine, unauthorized placement of a loud mechanical apparatus visible from the street. The generator was still in its box in my garage, with a tag that said, Quiet Series. I laughed, then caught myself, because sometimes laughing is how you keep from cussing. I called the number on the letter. Karen answered on the second ring, like she'd been waiting to be right. Cedar Point. She chirped. Nothing's installed. I said. It's a box in my garage next to an old toaster. Intent matters. She said. Residents have complained. Residents I moved in yesterday. There's people who are very attentive. She said. Also, your planters are non-conforming. My what? I looked at the 2 black fabric grow bags on my porch, still folded like sleeping cats. Vegetables in front yards are not harmonious. They're vegetables, I said. They're literally harmony. She sighed. We're not enemies. Miss Morgan, please work with us. I am, I said, and hung up before my mouth got me a lawyer bill. Receipt 2 email to the HOA Architectural Committee with my permit. A photo of the small generator still boxed. And a doctor's letter. Child requires continuous oxygen support during respiratory episodes. I included a note. Will screen with lattice, painted your approved taupe. I attached a picture of the lattice because I knew we were playing a theater game. Weather app said a storm might sit on us by Sunday evening. Clock started ticking in my gut. That night, a neighbor named Theo knocked with cookies that tasted like a memory someone took from a church basement. Karen got you already, he asked. Eyebrows raised. A little. I said, we'll be fine. Theo laughed in a way that said, no, you won't. But I like your optimism. Saturday. I bought a half-dozen cinder blocks and a roll of privacy screen. Because if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it cute. Miles painted the words air for Miles on a wood sign. Letters big and wobbly. Miss Ruth shook her head but smiled. That tired pride moms wear. By noon I had a tidy little corner by the side yard. Behind the hedge. I hadn't even opened the box yet when a golf cart rolled up Cedar Point's compliance team. 2 men in polos with matching mustaches. One had a pair of bolt cutters in the cart bed like a prop. The other wore mirrored shades, even though the sun was half hiding. Afternoon. Mustache one said, we're here to remove unauthorized equipment. There's nothing to remove. I said, that's a hedge. Mustache 2 tapped his clipboard. We have an emergency abatement order. Receipt 3, I asked to see it. He handed me a crisp sheet. Emergency abatement nuisance equipment endangering community harmony. No city seal. No signature that mattered. The official stamp had a misspelled word, committee. You can't spell committee. I said. You definitely can't remove medical equipment you made up. They stepped closer anyway. Boots, scuffing my driveway like they wanted to leave a mark. My jaw went tight. I felt that nurse calm come over me. The one I put on when a patient's oxygen dips and the room leans. I took out my phone and started recording. I said the date out loud. In words. I panned to the unopened box. I panned to the men. Ma'am. Mustache one said, cooperate, and it'll be easier. You put those bolt cutters on my property, and you'll be buying me new bolt cutters. I said. Karen's SUV glided to a stop, like she had a little sound cue in her head. She stepped out in athletic leggings and a sweatshirt that said, be kind like a dare. Deja. She said. Don't be dramatic. Tell your guys to step back. I said. We're preventing a sound crisis. She said. My son breathes. I said. That's the only crisis I'm managing. Receipt 4, my neighbor Theo walked up. Phone in his hand. Live streaming on the neighborhood Facebook group that Karen pretends she doesn't read. Hey friends. He said into his camera. Compliance showed up with bolt cutters. To cut. Air. Feels on brand. Karen smiled like a crocodile on sabbatical. We value safety. Same. I said. Which is why I have a permit. Printed. Signed. Blessed by a city inspector named Loretta, who loves peach gum. City law doesn't supersede community standards. Karen said. Legally. I said. That's backwards. By then, 3 more neighbors had drifted to the sidewalk, with coffee and curiosity. little crowd. I could feel the weather shift, both in the sky and the vibe. The mustaches hesitated. Karen flicked her hand. "We'll revisit," she said. Like mercy. That night, I got an email from the president. Subject, denied. The body had one sentence: "Your generator plan is not harmonious and frankly presumptuous." Attached was a PDF listing alternate solutions, including drive to a friend's house during outages. My brain did a short buzz. I pictured Miles gasping in the back seat while rain punched the windshield, and my hand went cold. Receipt 5. I replied with a scan of the Fair Housing Act guidance on reasonable accommodations and modifications. I highlighted the part about medical equipment and the duty to allow auxiliary aids unless it fundamentally alters the nature of the housing. I added, politely, driving a child during a storm is not reasonable. We're available to discuss before Sunday. No response. Sunday morning. Clouds stacked like stubborn laundry. I brewed coffee and put on my nurse scrubs because sometimes costume helps courage. Miss Ruth sat Miles down to practice his breathing exercises. Inhale like you're smelling cookies. Exhale like you're blowing out long skinny candles. He made the laugh wheeze noise I hate. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Power company text. High chance of rolling outages between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. My chest tightened in a way that reminded me of nights under fluorescent lights, counting heartbeats. The clock clicked louder. I opened the box. I set the generator on the little pad I'd made. Anchored it, like the manual said. I ran the cord to the transfer switch. I'd paid a licensed electrician to install. I took a photo of the electrician's invoice and wrote the amount in words, paid $1,200, because yes, that's rent. But also, what's the price of air? I hit the start button for a test. The engine purred. Not loud. Louder than a cat. Quieter than Karen's cart when it squeaks. Within 5 minutes, a golf cart whined around the corner. Karen was driving. Alone. Like a sheriff in a low-stakes western. She parked across my driveway like punctuation. "Turn it off," she said. "No," I said. "There's a storm coming and a rolling outage scheduled. My son is not a debate point." She adjusted her sunglasses like she wanted the world to look different. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." "Yeah," I said, and felt my voice wobble, then settle. "That's kinda your specialty." The storm hit at 5:27 p.m. A first slap of rain, like someone turned on a shower over the whole subdivision. The streetlights blinked. The power hiccuped, then died. The house exhaling to quiet. The generator switched on with a soft hum. The oxygen concentrator whirred back to life. Miles's shoulders relaxed. Receipt 6. I texted the community group chat. The one Marcy on the board pretends doesn't exist. Power's out. Generator running for medical device. Please check on your elders. Within minutes, neighbors wrote back. Theo, I'm bringing tea lights to Miss Fwong. Ms. Alice, my insulin's in my fridge. Can I bring it over to keep cold? Me. Yes. Bring it. In the rain light. Figures moved house to house, like kindness with hoods. We set a cooler on my porch with an extension cord to run a small fan for a neighbor with hot flashes that could set a room on fire. The generator held. I kept one eye on Miles. One eye on the gas gauge. And one ear on the radio. At 6:11 p.m. the golf cart came again. Wipers squeaking like a metronome for Petty. The compliance team. Same mustaches. Same shades. Same bolt cutters, even though nothing needed cutting. They stepped into my yard like they owned the deed. We're shutting this down. Mustache 1 shouted over the rain. Residents are complaining about the noise. Which residents? I asked. He gestured vaguely to a house that, at that moment, had a toddler screaming like a siren. People, he said. Important ones. No, I said. He moved toward the generator. I stepped between him and air. Touch it, and you're on Ring and the 6 o'clock news, I said. Also, you're going to court. Karen appeared behind them like a stage direction. This is an enforcement action, she said. No, I said again. This is a medical accommodation. She lifted her chin. You're forcing us to escalate. You brought bolt cutters to a storm, Theo said, from under an umbrella that said, World's Okayest Dad. He turned his phone so the live stream caught the faces. Hi. Internet. We're watching the HOA try to turn off a kid's oxygen. Receipt 7 blue lights splashed the wet street. A city inspector, Loretta, my permit friend, arrived in a hatchback with a magnetic sign, building safety. She hopped out in a yellow raincoat like a pissed-off daffodil. Who's messing with the generator? She asked. I am, Karen said, straightening like a second grader about to tattle. It violates our standards. Loretta looked at the permit taped in a plastic sleeve to my fence. She looked at the generator. Quiet and steady. She looked at Miles through the window. Inhaling. Exhaling like a metronome. Ma'am, Loretta said to Karen. If you cut this, I will cite you. For what? Karen asked. Half scoff. Half prayer. For being reckless, Loretta said. And for interfering with a permitted medical modification. Karen sputtered. The mustaches rocked back on their heels. The rain eased to a hard whisper. In the window, Miss Ruth put her palm up. Like a benediction. Power returned at 8:14 p.m. The lights popping back like apologetic friends. The generator powered down with a sigh. Miles clapped. Then coughed. Then laughed. And the three sounds braided into a small hymn. An hour later, when we were drying towels and making grilled cheese like the world wasn't cracked, an email hit fine assessed $1,000. Reason hostile conduct during enforcement. I put my forehead on the fridge. I let the cold press the heat out of me. Then I opened a new slide deck. Because receipts don't build themselves. I built a timeline. I wrote every date in words. I inserted photos, the unopened box, the fake abatement order, the permit, the doctor's letter, the storm, Loretta's raincoat, a still from Theo's live stream showing bolt cutters glinting like a cartoon threat. I added a clip from my porch camera, Karen saying we'll escalate, like she was an elevator. I highlighted phrases from the law, from the city guidance, from the HOA's own values page. At the back of the packet, we support health and neighborliness. Receipt 8. I slid a printed copy of my deck into plastic sleeves and put it in a binder, because sometimes pettiness is just thoroughness. Wearing heels. Then I emailed the board to put me on the agenda for Tuesday. I CC'd a list that looked like a Dare the City housing office, a legal aid clinic where my friend Danny works, and a local reporter named Grace who writes about neighborhood nonsense like it's her beat. Which, it is. Monday morning. Neighbors slip notes into my mailbox like secret valentines. Ms. Alice, they told me my wind chimes were unsafe. Theo, they made me move my pride flag to the backyard because visibility. Mr. Kaded. Patel. They measured my grass with a ruler and declared it too friendly. A pattern. Like plaid. But mean. Tuesday. 7 p.m. The clubhouse smelled like carpet and modest dreams. The board sat behind a folding table. Name placards, printed on cardstock that wanted a raise. Karen sat center, flanked by Trent, who manages the Facebook page, comments with the fervor of a hall monitor. And Marcy, who can type an email faster than a hummingbird can judge you. The room filled. Some came for drama. Some came because outages had reminded them that comfort is a job we do together. Karen banged a gavel she said belonged to the institution, which made me picture a sanitarium for power trips. We will maintain civility, she warned, which often means, be quiet while we do loud things. Public comment is later, she added, tilting her head toward me like a scolding. First, enforcement updates. Trent read a list of violations, like he was narrating crimes: a basketball hoop left on a driveway overnight, a porch light too bright, a small little free library deemed non-conforming literature. I felt the room tense. A muscle waiting for a sprint. Now, Karen said. Ms. Morgan. I stood, carried my binder and my heart. My voice tried to climb into my neck. I swallowed. Said to myself, you tell patients hard truths at 3 a.m. died. You can tell this room a story at 7:08 p.m. died. Hi, I said. My son needs steady oxygen. Power goes out. His machine goes out. He can't breathe. I got a city permit for a small backup power source. The board denied it because it wasn't harmonious. Sunday, during a storm, 2 volunteers came with bolt cutters to shut it off. A city inspector told them to stop. Then I got fined for being hostile. That's the story. What might that be? Here are the receipts. I clicked the projector. Slide 1, the doctor's note. Slide 2, the permit. Stamped and signed. Slide 3, the alleged abatement order with committee spelled wrong. Slide 4, a still from the live stream with the bolt cutters in rain. Slide 5, the HOA handbook line about supporting health every 30 or 40 seconds. Another piece. I could feel the room changing, like a fever breaking. Theo held up his phone showing comments from the live stream emojis, like a confetti of girl what? And cutting the air really, Ms. Alice whispered Lord into her teacup. Receipt 9. I held up a copy of state law passed last year, the Right to Garden Act, which got a lot of jokes online but also, real talk, prevents HOAs from banning veggie beds. I mentioned this, I said, because I got a letter about my tomatoes that ain't even sprouted. There was a murmur. Karen banged the gavel. Vegetables are off topic. Everything's the topic when the topic is control. Theo said, too loud. Then coughed and mouthed, sorry. I went to the last slides, an email thread. Public records request came through fast when the city is petty. At petty between Karen and a vendor named Pinecrest Security. They were pitching the board on a plate reader camera at the gate for $12,000. A footnote. We can integrate violation tracking link license plates to homeowners for faster fines. A smiley face. And here's a bid, I added, clicking to the next slide. From Madison Green Landscaping, fun fact. Owned by Karen's daughter, paid thousands over the last year for beautification. With no competitive bids recorded in your minutes. The room stilled. Not the quiet of boredom. The quiet of oh. Karen blanched, then pinked. This is out of order. She snapped. This is defamation. Actually, A voice said from the door. It's governance. Grace, the reporter, slipped in. Her press badge visible. Her pen like a tiny sword. Behind her, Loretta from building safety leaned against the wall like a bouncer in a raincoat. And behind them, Danny from legal aid, who is built like a linebacker and laughs like a clarinet, lifted a hand. Grace asked to speak. Karen said no. The room said lol. Miss Fwang raised her small hand and said, "We tired," which is in grammar, and also is absolutely correct. I move to rescind Ms. Morgan's fines. Mr. Patel said from row 3. Voice steady as a metronome. And to adopt a medical accommodation policy that sets deadlines in days, not months. We're not in motion time. Karen said. It's our meeting. Someone muttered. Danny stood. Friendly reminder. He said that under federal law, you must allow reasonable accommodations for disability. Interfering is a risk. Civil penalties. Damages. You also have fiduciary duties when spending neighbor funds. Contracts to related parties require disclosures and often recusals. Sorry, your board hasn't recorded that. Who are you? Karen asked. Neighbor. He said. Lawyer. Person who reads. Karen tried to adjourn. Trent tried to glower. Marcy typed like a cartoon. Officer Daniels, who I vaguely recognized from school traffic duty, stepped in and said, We're not shutting down a meeting so a mom can't breathe. The room chuckled, even though the sentence was sideways. He meant well. You know, Theo produced a stack of proxies collected door to door. Motion to recall the president, he said. Shoulders back, like the day you ask for a raise you deserve. You cannot recall without notice. Karen said. Notice was posted. Miss Ruth said from beside the snack table where, yes, she'd brought pound cake because Miss Ruth brings pound cake to fights like clergy brings oil. She held up a flyer from the clubhouse board with Monday's date spelled out. Right there. In 14-point font. Bless your eyes. Marcy opened and closed her mouth like a nervous fish. Trent tried to filibuster. The room said no with its whole body. The vote went fast. Names called. Hands raised. Proxies counted. Numbers spelled out by Mr. Clyard. Patel on a legal pad, because he too likes rules, but the fair kind. By more than 2/3. The board flipped. Karen stood. Smile, trembling. Then tossed the gavel into the tote like it bit her. She tried to say she was resigning for family reasons. Someone in the back said, The reason is Madison. And there was a ripple of, oof. Receipt 10, the new interim president, Theo. Because life is wild, took the mic. He looked like a kid you hand the bus keys to because he reads the map. Item 1, he said. Voice wobbling, then firming. Rescind Deja's fines. Item 2. Adopt a medical accommodation policy with a 7-day decision clock. Default to yes. Appeals within 14 days. Item 3. Create an accessibility and gardens task force led by Miss Fwang and Ms. Alice because they actually care about things that breathe. Item 4. Request a third-party audit of all spending over the past 2 years, with special attention to related party transactions. The room applauded like it had been holding that sound under its tongue. Karen tried to storm out. Loretta held the door and said, politely, Watch your step. Change didn't fix everything overnight. Petty is a plant with deep roots. But we got movement. The new board canceled the plate reader because we ain't a prison, said Miss Ruth. who was not technically on the board but somehow chairs every meeting just by sitting in a chair. The audit found 3 contracts to Madison's shop and 1 to a cousin's sign company that printed exactly 5 flyers for $200 each. Grace wrote a column titled, "When Harmony Means Hush," which made Karen's friends do that thing where they post vague statuses about betrayal. We wrote the new medical policy in simple English on a single page. It said, if you need a thing to breathe, heal, move, or live, tell us. We will say yes, unless there's a real safety reason to say no. We will help you do it right. We will not make you beg. We printed it and put it in the packet where the fines used to sit. It felt like rearranging a living room so the couch points toward Joy. Miles's tomatoes pushed up. Green and stubborn. He named them. 1 was air. 1 was power. 1 was Larry, because he's 9. He drew a sign, take a tomato. Leave a smile. Karen drove by once. Looked at the bright little fruit, like it owed her rent. And kept going. Receipt 11, one hot afternoon. The pool posted a new rule. Lap swim hours added. A neighbor who uses a cane cried into her towel because for the first time she could swim without teenagers cannonballing near her bad knee. We added a community fridge by the clubhouse. Karen's old newsletter had said it would attract unwanted elements. The only element it attracted was gratitude. Miss Fuang stocked it with summer rolls that would make you write poems. One evening, a storm muscled in from the west. The power blipped, then held. The generator sat quiet. Ready, but not needed. My chest unclenched, like a fist that found a hand. We sat on the porch. The sky did that purple-orange thing that makes you believe in birthdays. Miles leaned on me. Sticky with watermelon. Alive, in the most boring, perfect way. Then came the after. The part where the lesson sets. The audit results became policy competitive bids. Conflict disclosures, in big letters. Board members, recusing like grown-ups. We held a training with a fair housing coordinator who said, kindly, "The law isn't a bat, it's a bridge." I wrote that down. We posted it on the bulletin board where the Lost Cat flyers lived. Karen. She tried to run for a committee spot at the next election with a platform called Restore Harmony. It landed with a gentle thud. She's still our neighbor. I wave when we pass. Ending someone's reign is not the same as ending them. She walks her golden doodle at dawn. She's learning how to not be in charge of air. There's a moment I keep, like a Polaroid in my head. It's the day after the vote. Theo and I are in the clubhouse kitchen with Grace and Loretta and Danny and half the neighborhood. We're cutting Miss Ruth's pound cake, making a mess of crumbs. Someone asks, "How'd y'all do that?" And it hits me. The answer is boring and brave. We showed up with receipts and rules and people. We said the numbers out loud, in words. We didn't let the gavel write our story. We told it. Receipt 12. Final. A photo on my fridge door. Miles standing by the generator pad. Now tucked behind a lattice, painted the approved taupe. Holding a tomato with both hands like it's a planet. On the lattice is the little wooden sign he made. Letters shaky. Heart steady air for Miles. Next to it, a newer sign. Printed on cardstock by the new board. Signed by Theo and Miss Fuang and Miss Pear. Alice and Mr. Patel? Yes. Even Loretta approved. In harmony with community. Harmony didn't mean silence. It meant everyone breathing at the same time. What would you do here?